forms online, I assume now.
Is that the ones that,
Elected forms.
that's something that you do with me?
No, that's financial disclosures. These are the election forms.
Whatever you like.
That's a problem.
Good luck, guys.
Yeah, it's really bad. They got you in as 2 L's, not 1 L.
No, 2 L's. Try 1 L? Oh, 1 L and 2.
Can you have one more minute? One more minute? I'll let the finish. I want me to come to that language. I would prefer he. Do really? Yeah. All right, let's go, guys.
Folks, someone who's landing right.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. This regular meeting of the Township Council is being held in accordance with the schedule of meetings of the Township Council established and adopted by the Township Council, which schedule designates the time, date, and place of this meeting. Adequate public notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. We are using an electronic amplifying and recording device in order to attain a clear and audible record, and request all those wishing to speak be recognized and state your name and address directly into the microphone. The recording device will be still utilized by the Township Clerk's Office for the preparation of minutes. Shall be the official record of the Township Council meetings. Madam Clerk, may I have the roll call, please?
Mr. Hutchison.
Present.
Ms. Grace. Here. Mr. Mignon.
Here.
Mrs. Stubbs.
She's out.
Mrs. Winters. Mrs. Trotta.
Excused.
Mr. Mercado.
Present.
Mr. Carlemere.
Here.
Mr. Cardis.
Here.
Mr. Lechner.
Here.
Chief Harkins.
Here.
Mr. Chadwell.
Here.
We'll now have our first public portion. This is for agenda items only. Each speaker is entitled to 3 minutes. Our public portion is a 15-minute time period. Once everyone has had their turn, they may address council the second time. I'll link it as to what was said earlier. Does anyone wish to speak on any agenda items only? Okay, Ms. Coyne.
Denise Coyne, 1060 Choose Laney Road.
Good evening.
Good evening. Resolution 2112-337 for confirming the employment agreement with the Deputy Chief of Police. Is that for the Deputy Chief of Police that we have, the current one?
No.
So we're hiring another one?
So, Chief, you want to do this together, or?
Certainly, I can take a shot if you like.
Okay.
So, the Deputy Chief Manazzi was a provisional appointed back in late 2019. We're a civil service town, so it was a promotional test. It was caused by 3 captains that applied to take the test. So, with the pandemic, the testing process was pushed back for almost 2 years. So he's at the period of time in his career where we first I committed him to this accreditation project. He's our accreditation manager, which is a major project for the police department. So we proposed, he came out, number 2, a veteran came out ahead of him on the promotional test that they took. For us to move forward with the organization to keep things running smoothly with the accreditation, we're adjusting our organization. We're going to reduce things this coming year so that we're able to make the second position of the deputy chief position. We were unable to skip the first candidate. So it's not an ideal situation, but we don't foresee it to be a long-term situation in the future. We'll see how that goal goes, but we propose it, and I've been working with the administration to make the best out of the situation since he's been deputy chief for 2 years almost provisionally. And because of the pandemic delaying the testing process, we couldn't wait. We had to move forward, and he's done a very good job at that. So Brian McKendry was proposed. He came out first. He has veteran status. We're unable to skip that position because of civil service rules. And so this is proposing we're adjusting our organization structure.
Thank you. And may I add, they're both excellent individuals that work in the department for a tremendous amount of time, that bring different skills and talents to us. Thank you, Chief.
Yes.
So if I understood you correctly, we have two deputy chiefs right now. All right, resolution 2112-329. This is slightly confusing to me for the escrow for the medical marijuana dispensary. When was the escrow account established?
This is 329.
Yes, I believe,
This is the refund on 553
yes.
Rusty Road.
Yeah, this
This
goes
is the
back,
brief-
This is for the application.
yeah, this one goes back, I think, 2 years, Mr. Carter.
It's about 2 years that this was a, one person that wanted to put a application and bid in, and the township was requiring some type of commitment, they put up the dollars, then they backed out, the money just sat there, now they're making a request for the return of the deposit dollars.
But isn't this the people that are doing the New Vision Business Park grow facility?
No, it's unrelated at all,
Okay, so they're different people.
correct.
Okay. And they have nothing to do with the people that are currently doing the medical marijuana facility in Blackwood West?
Correct.
Okay. So they put up money that wasn't used because they weren't chosen and we're giving it back.
They wanted to show that they had a commitment when they were going through their process with the state of New Jersey and all, and they wanted to hold the land, they put up a deposit, and they backed out, the deposit didn't get approved perhaps. Now they've asked for their dollars back, and it's been in an escrow account.
They didn't get approved, neither did any of the other ones that put down the deposits. I don't recall, but I think off the top of my head, there were 5 or 6
Yeah, this is the only one that I'm.
deposits. I know Christiana, my CFO, is here. Do you remember how many of the $50,000 deposits we received?
I don't recall, because they were done, I think, back in 2018. So it's,
This
I
is
think it was
I believe this is the
18 or
last of
19.
it.
Okay, so in 2018, we
It was
marketed
18 or
this
19, I'm not
property,
sure.
this 553 Cross Keys Road. We marketed that property for medical marijuana. Is that the way?
No, that's not what happened. There was a program through the state where they were going to, and stop me if I go awry, Mr. Carter, but the state of New Jersey was going to approve, I believe, 1 or 2 licenses in North Jersey and 1 or 2 licenses in South Jersey. There was a lot of competition for it. Gloucester Township had positioned ourselves to be, to where we could have received approval from the state. Ultimately, we did not, but a prerequisite to being able to apply with the state was anybody that was interested had to make a good faith deposit, and that was determined to be $50,000.
So is it safe to say that these entities were reaching out to the township?
Yes, they were interested in
Yeah.
establishing.
Do you see
if
the
we got
distinction,
approval.
Ms. Coyne?
Well, no, the reason I'm asking is because of the address.
I know, Ms. Coyne, but you said that the township was marketing it. But in reality, these entities were reaching out to the township.
Okay, but the reason I'm asking if the township was marketing it because of the address, because the address is 553 Cross Keys Road, which is currently where the resolution R2112-340, that's the address for the grow facility for that resolution, so it's the same address.
Okay.
So it's just,
But your choice of word is not accurate.
Okay.
okay, but it was an EDC, it was listed on the EDC website also as an economic development opportunity property, which is why I asked
It's coincidental.
that.
Ms. Coyne, your time's up.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak? Mr. Krug?
Evening, Council. Paul Krug, Blackwood Estates.
Good evening.
Just wanted to clarify my understanding with regards to ordinance 2115, and maybe it's tied also to 2116. I assume at this point, based on this ordinance, it's public information that Mr. Lechner will be retiring from township planning position. Mr. Lechner, thank you for your service to the township over the many years. It would appear to me as though this ordinance is breaking out his responsibilities into two separate roles. One as a municipal engineer and one as a planner, having their defined structures. Is that a correct understanding?
So this was discussed at our workshop, and what it does is currently the planner, Mr. Lechner, serves as the director of the community planning and development. Each year, we have a municipal engineer that gets appointed. They're appointed to this position by the mayor and with the advice and consent of council for a 3-year term. What we're doing is that the planner is going to be appointed by the mayor with advice and consent of the township council and serves for a 1-year term. The planner, whomever that planner may be, will not necessarily be the director of this department. So that is the change. Mr. Carter, you want to add to that?
That's correct. When you read the administrative code, it says the director of the Department of Community Development shall be the planner. That's a lot of administrative functions in a sense. So since Mr. Lechner is retiring, the administration wanted to divide the planning professional responsibilities from the administrative responsibilities. So the director of the Department of Community Development does not have to be a licensed planner. So the township needs a licensed planner. So we took the section of position of appointment. There's a position of engineer, and engineer in New Jersey is a 3-year appointment. We added a position of planner, and a planner is a 1-year appointment. That's all that does. It pulls out the planner being the director of the Department of Community Development.
And this has nothing to do with the next ordinance, 21-16. That is a personnel policy procedures manual that we need for insurance purposes. We have to get updated.
Okay, thank you. Would you mind just explaining for ordinance 15, the underlying reasoning or determination as to why to separate out the planning function from the director function?
Well, I believe prior to Mr. Lechner, the director of that department was not a licensed planner. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct.
So when Mr. Lechner,
Was it?
no,
No.
that's true.
Mr. Sayer did not was not a planner.
So the township is making, and your directors of your departments, specifically community development, no longer has to be a licensed planner. And I guess the administration feels it gives them more flexibility to have an administrative person in that position. But there is a need for a planner, so we created a position of planner, which is a licensed professional planner, meets the requirements, and has to be appointed until 1-year appointment.
Are there any disadvantages to, I guess, this strategy as opposed to having a licensed planner also be the director?
I don't think one way or another. I think we're just looking for someone more that focuses on the administration side, administrative functions.
Okay, appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krug. Is there anyone else? Mr. Sweet.
Evening, Council. Sam Sweet from Ariel. With resolution, the addendum 2112 340.
Yes.
You're going in a lease with Resonate Bliss LLC. Do we have the terms of that lease?
The only thing that authorizes is a letter of intent or intent to enter into. I believe it's part of the requirements of the applicant wants to show that he's serious in this endeavor as he goes through his licensing process in New Jersey. That's Riley, who's here representing that individual company, can better explain it, but This reinforces their ability to go through with the project when they're applying for their necessary state licensing. So this basically is a resolution of the governing body authorizing the administration to enter into a letter of intent to enter into a lease with them. In terms of the lease, all have to be worked out. It just says, we intend and commit to process our lease with you if you're successful with your license.
So at a later time, if they come back, and I'm just gonna make up numbers, they wanna enter into a lease for $1, you guys have right of refusal on that?
In terms of that letter of intent, we're just intending that we're going to negotiate with them and no one else at this juncture.
Okay.
We can't come to terms, there's no contract.
So, all right, so with this property, this is, public property now, 553,
It's township owned.
it's township owned. We're leasing if I'm understanding this correctly, we're going to lease it to them or negotiate a lease. They're going to build it up, put buildings on it or farmland, or like, they're going to alter this land, correct? They're not just gonna put plants down.
I can't answer that.
I don't have specifics.
All those specifics, I couldn't.
So why are we, if we don't have specifics on it, because this is land that could be, why are we voting on something we don't have specifics on?
We're voting on to enter into an intent, okay, to enter into an agreement.
An agreement that we don't have specifics on.
We can move forward that does make this parcel of land available for that particular business. That's what we're.
What is the tax assessed,
I would have that off the top of my head.
so, but because to me,
I can assure you it's minimal.
but to me, it comes down to how much money are we going to make from the lease versus being able to tax? I'm assuming that the marijuana is going to be taxed at some point to the township, or a portion of it.
Tax revenue.
Okay, so has a study been done as to, over here, we're going to make X, but if we sell the property and build on it or something else to a private owner, we sell it, and the taxes, we're going to make Y.
No, I'm not aware of any study that we have.
So we're entering into an agreement without looking at numbers at all.
We're not entering into an agreement. We're just saying that we will commit to negotiate with them and no one else at this time. So it's a letter of intent to enter into an agreement with them. If there's not a meeting of the minds on the agreement, then it's not going to be signed. But the next resolution, if there's an understanding between the township as owner and the developer in a lease situation as tenant, then there's got to be a resolution authorizing the signing of that. That's when all the terms are there. Right now, we're just saying, you need a letter of intent that we'll lease it to you. We'll give you a letter of intent that will shut the door to everyone else and work with you at this juncture, so long as all the blocks fall in place.
And that is needed for their certification.
Okay, who owns this company? Do we know that?
I don't know if the administration is, I'm sure the administration has had meetings with them.
Can the administration answer that question on who owns this company?
I have not had any. I don't know if the mayor has or not.
Ms. Frye, is that something you can disclose?
Yeah, you want me to go to the next?
Oh, yes, please. Ms. Riley, welcome to our council meeting.
Thank you for having me. Melissa Riley, I'm an attorney at McCarter and English. So Resonate Bliss is owned by Peter DeCaro. It is currently an operating cultivation and dispensary. They actually have 3 dispensaries in Massachusetts, and that's the minority owner. The majority owner is Amy Vadavas, who's a local New Jersey resident. Those are the owners. They have met already with the mayor and Gabby, his aide, and I believe someone else. I was not privy to those meetings down here. I was at a different meeting. Yes. And then everything that Solicitor Carla Muir explained, the resolution is not an agreement. It is not the lease itself. It's just.
If the landlord's aware that you're going to put this up.
Right. Aware that
This
we would
business
very
is
much
part of your
love
application.
to use the township's property, pay the township monthly for use of the property, as well as paying the township for 2% tax on the cultivation, as well as 2% tax on the manufacturing. So there's a little double dip for the town on top of the lease payments. So yes, we're looking forward to hopefully working with the township, and this, again, not a signed contract. It's just a resolution expressing the township's desire to work with Resonate Bliss.
Thank you, Ms. Riley. And Mr. Sweet, your time is up. Thank you. We'll close public portion. Proclamation.
Drive sober, get pulled over, 2021 year-end holiday crackdown. Whereas approximately 1/3 of all fatal traffic crashes in the United States involve impaired drivers. And whereas impaired drivers driving crashes killed 10,142 people in the United States in 2019. And whereas impaired driving crashes cost the United States almost $44 billion a year. And whereas during the past 5 years, New Jersey's roadways experienced 35,307 crashes and 618 fatalities involving impaired drivers. And whereas an enforcement crackdown is planned to combat impaired driving. And whereas the year-end holiday season is traditionally a time for social gathering, which includes alcohol. And whereas the state of New Jersey's Division of Highway Traffic Safety has asked law enforcement agencies throughout the state to participate in the Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over 2021 year-end holiday crackdown. And whereas the project will involve increased impaired driving enforcement from December 3rd, 2021 through January 1st, 2022. And whereas an increase in impaired driving enforcement and a reduction in impaired driving will save lives on our roadways. Therefore, be it resolved that the Township of Gloucester declares its support for the Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over 2021 year-end holiday crackdown from December 3rd, 2021 through January 1st, 2022, and pledges to increase awareness of the dangers of drinking and driving.
Waive the reading and accept the minutes of executive session November 8th, 2021, regular session November 8th, 2021, and regular session November 22nd, 2021. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
I'm going to abstain from the November 8th executive session, vote yes on the November 8th regular session, and abstain from the November 22nd regular session.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mr. Munio?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Bid report 2021-2022 snow removal. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mr. Munio?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes, next we have ordinance for first reading and introduction. There will not be a public hearing on this. That'll be for the second reading. Ordinance 0-21-15, ordinance amending Chapter 2 of the Code of the Township of Gloucester entitled Administrative Code of the Township of Gloucester. What this does, it is, as we discussed in our workshop and discussed in the public portion here, where we have the position of a municipal engineer and the creation of, we have a planner, and that the director of the direct office of Department of Community Development can be an individual that's other than the planner. I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second? Oh, thank you. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mr. Munio?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Ordinance 0-21-16, ordinance amending Chapter 5 of the Code of the Township of Gloucester entitled Personnel Policy and Procedures Manual of the Code of the Township of Gloucester. This updates our Personnel Policy and Procedures Manual. It's amended in its entirety. This is used for insurance purposes. They will not be a public hearing. That will be at our second reading. I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you, Mrs. Grace. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mr. Munio?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next is ordinance 0-21-12, Ordinance of the Township of Gloucester, County of Camden, and State of New Jersey, amending Ordinance 0-04-13, repealing and adopting the Blackwood West redevelopment plan in accordance with NJSA 40A-12A-1 et sec, local redevelopment and housing law. This is adopting the Blackwood West redevelopment plan as prepared by T&M Associates. We will have a public hearing for that. Anyone wishing to speak, please raise your hand. Ms. Coyne.
Ms. Coyne, 1062 Lane Road. This says under, I guess it's section A, where it says, whereas the Township Council does hereby make the following findings for adoption of the redevelopment plan. It says, the planning board of the Township of Gloucester, in accordance with NJSA 40A-12A-6, conducted a public hearing on November 25th, 2003. Shouldn't that be the November hearing this year? Because you're repealing and replacing the old plan. And that was the hearing from the old plan.
Mr. Lecter?
I believe that is a reference to
The original.
the public hearing for the determination of need in determining the Blackwood West redevelopment area.
And that's in the first paragraph, the first whereas,
Right, that's
last sentence.
that's the public hearing first to determine that the area qualifies statutorily as an area in need of redevelopment.
Okay, so that was just where they made it a redevelopment area. Okay, that's all I had on that one. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Mr. Krug?
Evening again, council.
Good evening.
On topic, but a little bit off to start, but in a positive tone. I'd like to congratulate and thank all those involved in the successful submission and award of the NPP grant for downtown Blackwood. The funds are certainly a good potential kickoff to successful redevelopment execution plan. I also appreciate the initial community engagement efforts of the project with a survey posted to glowtwip.com and meetings with residential and business stakeholders scheduled. With regard to the amended Blackwood West redevelopment plan, it provides a foundational vision statement and zoning overlay, but not necessarily a layout for the execution strategy, which, if I read correctly, in section 3, Township Council may be responsible for. As it reads, the Township Council remains designated as the redevelopment entity under the Blackwood West redevelopment plan and may proceed with clearance, replanning, development, and redevelopment of the redevelopment area to effectuate the purposes of local redevelopment and housing law. So if my understanding is correct, while this is a strong vision statement and zoning ordinance, it does not necessarily provide how this body, we as a community, are going to effectuate the change. How we're going to take 3, 5, and 7 South Black Horse Pike and reclaim those properties to have them function once again, hopefully with small businesses. So I guess my recommendation and maybe question is, and the MPP is certainly a start, but how are we going to, and Mr. Hutchison brought this up at the planning meeting, how is he going to be able to ensure that we're able to execute on this 2021 amended plan in a way that builds on the 2004 plan, hopefully such that it's much more effective and efficient in bringing downtown Blackwood back to revival.
I think that, and this is just me speaking, is that we have private investment money that is interested in downtown Blackwood. The MPP grant, so a private-public partnership. Triad is our economic development consultant. We're in a different, and I've talked about this before, you know, when that Blackwood West redevelopment plan sat on the shelf, you know, and during the recession, things just stopped. And there wasn't the investment made by the private sector in downtown Blackwood. There have been businesses that have been situated there, but what we need, and I think that the MPP and working with Triad and also the Economic Development Corporation, and a mayor that's committed to downtown Blackwood, serves as the impetus to move this forward. And you know, as you said, there was a questionnaire that was sent out to involve the community in MPP planning, where there's a kickoff tomorrow that's taking place with the meeting. There's opportunity there, and I'm hopeful that we see that and that we move forward with the redevelopment of that particular area. But again, I'm hopeful, not pessimistic. But I hope that this particular plan doesn't sit on the shelf as well.
I'm hopeful as well, and don't take this the wrong way, but it just sticks out when we start talking about hope, because it was said to me by my father consistently over time, hope isn't a strategy. So, and once again, I don't mean that to be,
But I tend to be an optimist rather than a pessimist.
Sure, myself as well. And I think that the MPP is certainly a first right step. And once again, I appreciate it. I did the survey. I will be on the call tomorrow and assist in any way possible. But when this amended plan is talking about home-based crafters and creators coming into downtown Blackwood, and they're going to be the catalyst of the makerhood to change things around. I brought this up in the planning meeting. Well, a home-based business or a micro business, do they have the funds, the capital funds or ability to get financing in order to take over a blighted building and rebuild that when they have access to Etsy and a nationwide consumer? I'm wondering, is that a strong plan? And I realize it's a 50-page document, but I think those are the type of questions that we need to be considering. And also, if we do get these artists and creators and crafters in, we know that typically things made by hand go for a little bit more of a higher price point. Can the local community support that price point in those businesses? And so these are questions in my mind, having read it, that I think, we may just need to think through as we move out a vision statement into execution.
I agree.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? We'll close the hearing on this ordinance. I entertain a motion. On the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mr. Munn?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next is ordinance 0-21-14. Ordinance amending ordinance 0-03-03, land development to provide a medical cannabis dispensary by an alternative treatment center to include a marijuana retail dispensary as a permitted use in the HC Highway Commercial District. What this allows is to amend to add this as a permitted use in alternative treatment center to provide marijuana retail dispensary. We will now open up we have a hearing on this public portion. Anyone wish to speak, please raise your hand. Ms. Coyne.
So can this type
Can you
of
state your name again, please? Because we don't have
Denise
a
Coyne. Can this type of facility go anywhere in Blackwood West that's highway commercial? Or just like a specific area in Blackwood West?
Mr. Leckner?
For clarification, it's not Blackwood West, it's
Highway
the
commercial.
highway commercial zone. So an alternative treatment center, as I understand it, is a facility that can dispense medical marijuana,
Right,
which, as I've been explained to me, is no different than a pharmacist, which is already a permitted use in a highway commercial zone. So an alternative treatment, I think the scenario is if someone has an alternative treatment center dispensing medical marijuana, they would also be permitted to dispense it recreational marijuana at the same facility as permitted use, as opposed to a non-permitted use or traditional.
okay, so this is gonna be like the equivalent of the place in Belmar that dispenses medical marijuana.
Have you been to the Belmont location?
No, I'm not familiar.
Please don't express an opinion on that.
Why would that be?
Well, the reason I'm asking is because I have been to the one in Belmar that dispenses medical marijuana. And I typically sit in the parking lot while my friend goes in. And I see everybody leaving, and the first thing they do is get on their phone and call their friends, I have it, come meet me in the parking lot. And they're dealing marijuana in the parking lot. So I was just wondering if this would be like restricted to like industrial highway commercial, or if it could be like, you know, on the Blackwoods Pike and the Blackwood West development in a highway commercial area.
I'm over on Mr. Blackness, it's highway commercial district.
I mean, Blackwood West has a highway commercial district, right?
I think that's an important question.
Well, I'm not sure what areas you're speaking of along Blackwood West, but from Almanesson Road to Meadows Diner is in the Blackwood West redevelopment plan. From Meadows Diner to College Drive, I believe it's neighborhood commercial. So along the Blackwood Pike, without looking at a zoning map, I would have to say it would not be permitted. But Blackwood Clementon Road, it would be, which is highway commercial, and Berlin Cross Keys Road, which is highway commercial. So,
Okay, Choose Landing Road, highway commercial in front of the 89 townhomes. Could it go there?
Yeah, the marketplace. That's highway commercial.
So theoretically, you could have a marijuana dispensary in front of the 89 townhomes you're building on Choose Landing Road.
I'm not building any town.
Well, they're building on Choose Landing Road.
It's kind of a good question, okay? And I hate putting you on the spot, I mean, I'd like to be able to think about it. But there is a commercial component to what they're doing over on Little Pond. Dave, can you help me out? Is this going to allow for dispensing marijuana at that location?
Well, just as the ordinance is written, when you read the ordinance, an alternative treatment center that has the endorsement of the mayor and township council. So, as I understand it, when someone applies for a license through the state of New Jersey, they get more points, whatever. I don't know if that's the right terminology, with the endorsement of the mayor and township council by resolution. So the ordinance includes that.
Okay.
When you read
So I can withhold.
when you read the ordinance, it's subject to alternative treatment center with the endorsement of the mayor and council.
And again, what is an alternative treatment facility?
Alternative treatment facility is licensed through the state, but general terms, as it's been explained to me, is a facility that dispenses medical marijuana under their licenses through the state.
One more, I'm sorry, Mr. President, I just want to make sure okay, so how many licenses,
Ms. Riley could explain it better than I can.
how many licenses are,
I don't have that information.
Is there anything else, Ms. Coyne?
Nope, thank you.
Is there anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hugh Giordano, 57 Argyle Avenue,
Welcome back, you.
Blackwood, New Jersey. Hello.
Sometime.
I've been all over the state.
Okay.
I'm here as a dual representation. I'm a resident, of course, and as a patient, I support any type of access to medicine. And I think that it's good job creators and good for our community. We have a Rite Aid, and we have liquor and restaurants that sell liquor right behind condos right here on Blackwood, Clementon Road. So no different in my view. I'm also here as a representative of the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. The UFCW is a national labor union of 1.3 million hardworking families, and we are the official cannabis labor union under the guise of the AFL-CIO. We represent workers from seed to sale, and we're also working directly with the New Jersey building trades who will be doing the retrofit and the build out. So the IBEW, the carpenters, the steam fitters, all those hardworking men and women in the trades will also be part of this legislation. New Jersey is very proactive when it comes to workers' rights within cannabis. So I'm hoping that on the local level as well, that we'll make sure that these employers sign labor peace agreements and also sign project labor agreements with official bona fide labor unions. They try to avoid unionization. That's not good for the working people here. This is a middle class area. And I hope that whoever we allow to come in here will stick to the labor standards in which S21 provides for, which is the adult use bill. I am openly, everybody knows I'm openly for this outside of my personal medical card, as a medical card holder, but as a labor representative, these are good jobs. And I have to say, I frequent these facilities in a professional manner, and they are very well protected with security. Most of them hire retired police officers to be the security. I have never seen medicine sold in the parking lot. They boot you off the property. It's actually against the law to consume medicine on dispensary property. I've never seen it. I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but they boot them off really quickly. So I've never seen that. But so I'm hoping that we will approve this. I'm hoping that, and also one of the things I brought before that we could do to make sure that we ease residents' concerns is to have a merit-based application system like the city of Bayonne did in June. A merit-based application system which looks at security standards. You could see who they hire. Are they going to hire retired police officers? Or are they going to use a guardian security? I think that we should look at those things. Are they going to have access to the police, which they do under this? I know the state, the Department of Health, the CRC has direct access to their cameras as well. I think they have a 30-day backup system by law. So it's very well secure. Environmental standards as far as odor control, water retention, all those types of things. City of Bayonne did that. And I think that's a good way to go because it makes it clear. It sets standards for the community. It protects working people because it has labor standards in it too, which gives points for LPAs and project labor agreements as well. Community, as far as community ownership as well, to allow for small business and micro licenses to win. So there's a lot we could do to protect folks if they're concerned through a merit system. But overall, I support it and the UFCW supports it, and we hope that the employers that are applying here will sign labor agreements. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Polidoro?
Good evening, Council. Ray Polidoro from the Historic Village of Ariel.
Good evening.
I guess for clarity, at some point, is this either including or will in the future include the harvesting cultivation? Is that what we're talking about this evening, or is that just we're making our way forward to that point?
Can you come again?
Harvesting and cultivating, the growing of cannabis.
No, this is
Not at this
allowing
point.
them to dispense.
And as we move forward with these items, and as I spoke with Mr. Giordano and have for the past couple of years as this started moving forward, that the CRC would be the governing body, and we would hope that council would do their due diligence to make sure that the CRC does not have to do theirs. Because at some point it will be a quality of life thing, And as it expands, and it will expand, as it becomes either productive for the people that use it and need it, and for what it does produce for the town, that it would be something that would be a net positive. To some extent, it would be in comparison to putting in a Burger King. And a Burger King makes flame broiled burgers, and when you go by Burger King, you smell flame broiled burgers. And to some people, that's a good smell. To some people, they don't like it. But it's a quality of life thing that this begins to get, and how it affects other people. At some point, I guess this is going to expand. This is just the first step, as you guys have talked about this since October. And again, I'm just looking forward, with this being somewhat of a sensitive issue to those that are not in favor, and not so sensitive to those that are in favor, that our government does their job and makes sure that the CRC does not have to do theirs, because there will be future discussions on it. We all know what the town of Belmar and how that's turned out. You can't go down 42 freeway on certain days without it reeking of a smell. I mean, it's like, a vegetarian going by Burger King. It's not the most pleasant smell in the world to them. Again, these are things we're moving forward to. And again, because it is a subject matter that not everybody agrees with, but to some extent there's a need for, I'm really counting on you guys to do all the things that need to be done so that CRC does not have to. And I hope you really take it seriously. Thank you. And if we don't meet again, happy holidays and Merry Christmas to all.
You as well. Is there anyone else? We'll close the public hearing. I entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
I am not a fan. However, as I've indicated before, 3/4 of the population have voted in favor of this activity, so who am I to say no? Yes.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mr. Minio?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next is our consent agenda. Any council member would like to move any of the items on the consent agenda, please speak up. Hearing none, I entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mr. Minio?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Resolution 2112-339, resolution to make budget transfers between appropriations in the county, calendar year 2021 general fund budget. May I have a motion?
So moved.
There. Thank you. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mr. Minio?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes. And our walk-on resolution 2112-340, resolution authorizing execution and delivery of agreement between the Township of Gloucester and Resident Bliss LLC to lease certain properties located at 553 Berlin-Krosky Road to operate a cannabis cultivator and/or cannabis manufacturer. I entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mr. Minio?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes. We have one GTE Gov access email. Bear with me, it's a long one. Here we go. This is from Elizabeth Dugan at 6 Hemlock Drive, Blenheim, New Jersey. Question for council. Good evening. As everyone is aware, Gloucester Township as well as Mainstays decided to cancel the Pumpkin Festival, the Food and Craft Beer event, and the Trunk or Treat event, which was scheduled during the month of October, on October 3rd, October 16th, and October 29th, respectively. The last two events were canceled due to COVID concerns. Council took issue with me questioning the rationale for canceling the October events and mentioned that they were not sure if events in the upcoming months would take place. However, there was a tree lighting event sponsored by Gloucester Township held last night, December 12th, attended by a decent crowd, and a good number of them were not wearing masks or standing 6 feet apart. I present to council the following COVID new case statistics for each date mentioned above from Camden County from the New York Times. October 3rd, 111 new cases, 156 average over 7 days. October 16th, 97 new cases, 106 average over 7 days. October 29th, 80 new cases, 96 average over 7 days. And December 12th, 221 new cases with an average of 254 over 7 days. On the dates that the events were canceled, the cases in our county were about half or more of yesterday's cases. Regarding the above, I have the following questions. 1, please explain why the event last night was not canceled, but the events in October were, given that the cases in our county were much higher last night than they were on the 3 dates in October. The event last night, let me go through all the questions, and there's some discrepancies, some of the information that she has here. Number 2, if the township was concerned about COVID spreading in crowds, why were there no reasonable precautions taken to protect the crowd last night, such as handing out masks or keeping the crowd spaced out? 3, would you agree that you did not want any political candidates running against the incumbents to attend the October events during a major election year, and that's why the events were canceled? So let me start with the first. Well, in her first paragraph, when she stated that the last 2 events in the month of October were canceled due to COVID concerns. That's incorrect. The Pumpkin Festival was canceled due to Main Stage unable to secure enough volunteers. We have gone over this several times in our meetings. The October 16th food and craft beer event, there were not enough vendors that were in place. In fact, there's also not enough volunteers through the Gloucester Township Scholarship Committee, which I'm a member of, and I also receive emails about the lack of vendors and the lack of volunteers needed for that event. So, the last event, the October 29th Trunk or Treat, where we have thousands of children that are in the park here for trunk or treat with volunteers that are providing candy and kids that are standing in that park sometimes up to an hour plus to get candy. I, as the organizer of that event, was not comfortable in having that event, and I've stated my reasons on several occasions. 1, please explain why the event last night was not canceled, but the events in October took place when the county averages were higher than on the last 3 days. This was an event that was planned by the mayor's office. They coordinated this event with the police department, our public works, and also the fire department. I believe that they felt comfortable to move forward with that particular event. 2, if the township was concerned about COVID spreading, masks, why were no reasonable precautions taken to protect the crowd last night, such as handing out masks or keeping the crowd spaced out? In the last month, we've had children that have been able to be vaccinated from the ages of 5 to 12. There's boosters that are being offered to individuals. Maybe that came into place of why we moved forward with having the event. Again, council was not involved with planning the event. We did work the event. We had a great time at the event. But I wasn't involved in the planning. Mr. Carter, do you have anything to add to that?
I do not.
Thank you. Lastly, would you agree that you did not want any political candidates running against the incumbents to attend the October events during a major election year, and that's why the events were canceled? I am going, okay. You see the smile on my face. We've had people that have had tables at pumpkin festivals for years, at Gloucester Township Day for years, and they were successful at beating the incumbents. So no, this was a safety concern. There was also a concern with volunteers and the lack of vendors for the Food and Truck Festival. This is not because we didn't want an independent slate winning or another slate winning. No, not at all. And I think it's foolish for someone to suggest that, or maybe an easy cop-out of why that their chosen candidates were not successful. So if that question is going to be asked, I'm going to give you a true, honest answer. And that's no, not at all. Having a table at the Pumpkin Festival or a Beer and Truck Festival doesn't win you an election. So, thank you, Ms. Dugan, for your comments. We'll now open up the public portion. This is for any item that anyone wishes to discuss. Each speaker is entitled to 5 minutes, and we have a 30-minute time limit on our public portion. Anyone wishing to speak? Mr. Polidoro.
Good evening again, Ray Polidoro from Ariel. I'd like to get an update on what the council believes to be the current status of the Market to Affordable program.
Ray, that has been suspended. That was brought up in our workshop meeting as well.
Okay.
That has been suspended. Mr. Carlemare had indicated that that individual is ill, has some health issues, and tomorrow there's a meeting with the Housing Authority, and Ms. Grace will provide an update for us at our next meeting.
Has there a document been created that I can open that clarifies and documents the end to that program?
There's no end, it's suspended.
Suspended meaning limbo for whatever?
Suspended. It means it's not operating right now. So it could operate in the future, it could end.
Tomorrow night's meeting might disclose.
Add some clarity to it.
Tomorrow night's meeting for, if they meet, a lot of them are, but a lot of them don't go through. The last time that we had discussed the land deal between the Housing Authority and the township, it was in some special limbo also with that needed to be discussed on a legal basis. You were not able to discuss. Is that still the status?
I have not had any reports from either office representing buyer or seller.
Okay. All right, and I may have merged a couple things earlier. Was it Resolution 340 that is the dispensary and cultivation on Cross Keys Road? That resolution passed this evening?
Yes.
Okay. So being from the southern end of the town, and again, it's whether I oppose it or not, whether I like it or not, is irrelevant. There's quality of life issues that would come into question. I know two of our council members that live on the southern end. I don't know if they had any input on the discussion before voting on that. If Council President would be so generous to see if they would like to speak on that. My question to council and those two representatives would be, should there be any type of issue common to Belmar? Would they be okay with that? Would they act as our council members to do something in a fashion that would help resolve that issue, being residents of that part of the town?
If anyone would like to speak on council, feel free. But there's a lot of references being made to Belmar, like this is common knowledge about these issues. Are you intimately aware of what's happening in Belmar? Because it's been referenced a few times here.
Sure. Anyone.
And not hearsay.
No,
knowledge.
No, I don't do hearsay.
Maybe I'll ask the chief if he could chime in, because some things get twisted here.
If it's hearsay, you're reading too much Facebook, Mr.
No.
In any event, what I do for a job is I drive around to different locations all over southern New Jersey. When I drive in the Belmar area, it is a good amount of that area that the smell of the cannabis is permeating the area. Those that drive up 42 freeway, depending upon which way the wind is blowing, you can pick up the scent of cannabis. It's not a secret, and if you don't drive up that area, you may not be familiar with it. But it's a very strong scent of cannabis. If it is not your cup of tea, it's not a scent that's very pleasant to you.
Right, I hate the smell of that, okay? But I don't, like, when I drive past the Melita Coffee Factory, I smell the coffee. I've never smelled it one time.
Well, maybe maybe you don't spend that much time there. There's just various days. Some days it is, some days it's not. Being in that part of town, like I said, Burger King's on Cross Keys Road. I don't smell plain broiled burgers. Taco Bell is right down the street from me. I don't smell the hot sauce. Chinese restaurants, you just don't smell some of those. There are some smells that permeate the air with greater quality of parts per million that will move in a fashion that becomes unpleasant. As you guys know, I live on a lake. Even though there used to be no smoking signs there, which you have graciously updated to include. cannabis. The kids go by there, park their cars, and that comes on a spring day, comes right in my back door, in my own house. So I speak from experience as well as driving around the Belmar area. And I spoke with Mr. Giordano earlier that there are room scrubbers. There's different environmental precautions that they can take. I would like, again, my council as well as the company that's coming in to do this, to find a way to do it right. If they're there and we don't smell it, it's no issue. It's there for a purpose, just as Burger King is, the Italian restaurant, the Chinese restaurant. If they're there to serve the people that want that product and it affects no one else and you don't smell it, some people like the smell of garlic. You know, it is what it is. It's just a matter of making sure that for those that don't know what Belmar smells like, and it's not the greatest thing in the world. If we don't smell it, we don't know they're there, and only the people that it serves is, there's no issue whatsoever. Again, I wish you happy holidays. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Council President, can I add to that?
Go ahead.
Sorry. I do live on the southern end, and Ray, I do concur. Up until a couple years or so, I drive 42 every single day, and I smelled it, and I said, why do I keep smelling marijuana at that Belmar site, only to find out that it is there. At my house, I smell Texas Roadhouse every night. That smells great. And I do believe, and I don't want to speak, but Mr. Giordano, you were here a couple of years ago talking about that there are ways that we can keep the smell down, and I agree. Yeah, we should keep the smell down. So yeah, absolutely.
Chief?
So I concur with, there is an odor by Creek Road as you come on if you were to come southbound and got on that on-ramp. It's in that industrial park, just as you, in Belmar. However, I can say I was involved with the conversations as well as Mr. Lecter with the administration when we were forming the ordinance that we scrutinized and went through. We even went so far as to add into the ordinance, clause about filtration, odor control, to try to address it to the level that we can. So I can say that the administration up to this point, and I will include myself, that is a concern. We put it into the ordinance, which you had passed, and that's at the early stages of us just thinking about trying to think through these problems. Security-wise, Belmar, I can tell you, is a very secure facility. They are up to specs from speaking with the Belmar police chief, just in inquiry and whatnot. The odor, I'm not sure what the issue is, and quite frankly, the Belmar police don't have the control over that. But the things that they do, they had no regular incidents that I'm aware of that they reported to me as far as security. They do have robust security systems. They do have security controls in place. And I can tell you from my standpoint, whatever happens, we enforce the law. We will come up with plans to ensure that it's as safe, just like any other business or anything else that we'll do. We'll adjust to our enforcement practices and our operations, if that makes you concerned. It's an issue that I am monitoring closely, and we will adjust as we need to adjust as a police department.
Thank you, Chief.
And I know the CRC responds to those type of things, because they do like to keep it on the up and up. So we're going to appreciate CRC on this as well. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Ms. Coyne. Trying to give other people a chance to speak. It's the same hand, so I just want to see if anyone else wanted to speak.
Denise Coyne. The resolution for this grow facility, R21-12-340, says that they're going to redevelop the property. So I'm wondering how that works if they're leasing the property, if they build on it.
Part of the lease, how the lease is negotiated, as any tenant coming in, putting improvements on there, it's going to be all spelled out in the lease agreement.
So it's township-owned property, and we're going to lease it to them, but they're going to come and build something on it that essentially is going to stay there forever.
Would be the content of the lease, how that lease is drawn to address whatever structures or improvements are put on there.
Okay, well, this address is in the New Vision Business Park, correct?
So,
Right, yes, it is.
Okay, that's a redevelopment area? Okay, so they'll have to sign a redevelopment agreement then, right?
They'll probably come before the redevelopment entity once they're putting out there.
Isn't that a requirement of the local housing and redevelopment law that they come in front of council?
They probably, well, they'll come before the redevelopment entity, which is the governing body.
Right.
So they'll come in as to what their proposals are.
Okay, so there'll be a public meeting on that, correct? Okay, thank you.
thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Sweet?
Sam Street from Ariel. I'm following up on a request for the minutes and the agenda from the EDC.
Sam, I made that request, and the clerk had also made that request, and we have not received that yet. Is that correct?
What is taking so long? It shouldn't be
I
that
don't
hard,
know.
I would think.
I don't know, Mr. Sweet, but I will ask again. And I would,
Because it's
I
been,
would think that the council president asked for that, I should receive that. So I'm going to make that request again.
okay, I understand that, and I would expect you to get it, but the fact that you haven't gotten it in a month and a half is making me wonder why, or do they even exist?
Okay, so we'll answer those questions for you.
Because the mayor in an article said that any resident can request it. So I'm requesting it again, just on the record. Would like it sooner than later, if possible.
Yes, sir.
What's that?
You'll get it when we get it.
But what is taking so long?
Don't know.
Okay, because we're paying for Triad to be there. And I mean, I'm just repeating myself. You guys all know this. We're
Yes, you are.
paying for them to provide a service, and there's no proof of the service that they're providing. In any other business, nobody would be paying for that.
Sam, I'll give you an update on that tomorrow. You will hear from me tomorrow.
Thank you.
Either way.
Mr. Hutchinson, you stated that you're not a big fan of the marijuana, but yet 75% of the people approve it and yada, yada, yada. Well, what else can we do? Or what can you do? Well, you could vote no because you.
But this is a representative democracy,
So
and I am elected to represent that particular group of people.
you're elected to represent all people.
Right.
So what about the 25% that
The town's.
are against it? So who's our representation?
Sam, what would you do in that case? Would you vote no?
If I was against it, yes.
Okay, I know you would, because that's how you are,
Okay.
okay?
But also
You know
the,
better than the people. So you're gonna vote how you would vote, and you're gonna disregard the 75% will of the people.
but you're you're disregarding the 25%. As a representative,
I
you
am.
should also represent the other people because those other side has no representation.
So now you know how I think, and
So,
I know how you think. So if 99% of the people wanna do a particular thing, and you don't think it's the right thing, you're gonna do what you wanna do.
not necessarily no, you're putting words in my mouth, Mr. Hutchinson.
As you
Okay, in
always
this
do.
situation, you just asked what could you do?
Hey,
And
Sam,
I'm saying that you could vote no,
Yeah.
all right? It still would have passed. You could have let it be known and then let the other 25% know that there's representation.
Hey, Sam,
Just saying.
we all know how you work, okay?
Okay, now you have no idea how I work, Mr. Hutchinson, so please don't say that,
I'm done.
okay?
Let's not have this back and forth.
Right, another thing was, when I was up here the first time, I believe Melissa Riley, and I don't mean to disrespect that with this, but she took my time in answering a question, and it's really my time, so I should be able to ask a question, get the answer, and when she's speaking or someone else is speaking, then it should not go against my time, or anybody else's time for that matter.
Sam, if you ask questions and you want certain responses to it, that's going to be part of your time. You've been here, you've been coming here for years. You see how I run my meetings. There's people that exceed the time.
And yet,
I'm
you never,
liberal with it. No, I'm liberal with it.
not with me, you're not.
Okay. Well, Sam, no, that was,
And
you asked the question.
Mr. Cardis would agree with that oomph I just heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Krug.
A lot of topics of interest tonight.
Absolutely.
Sorry to be up here so many times. Because it was brought up earlier with regard to some of the events that are specific to Blackwood, I just had a couple of suggestions. Obviously, the Christmas parade just went off, which the township as a whole, myself included, business owners downtown all enjoy thoroughly. But some of the business owners downtown during that event on a Saturday night do get landlocked in. And so let's say your business is in food and you make deliveries or people come to your establishment for pickup, there's approximately a 3-hour window that you could be landlocked, and that could be worth thousands of dollars to your business. Let's say that business wanted to get creative and sell food to people at the event on the street. Well, they may not realize that you need a permit in order to do that. And so it would be proactive and advantageous of the township potentially if they were able to reach out ahead of an event and let the businesses know that they need a permit in order to do so, so that they can subsidize being landlocked by that event. Secondarily to that, with regard to the beer and food festival, which I attended several years back prior to COVID, I noticed that Shayna's Wild Fig had just opened prior to that event. And I guess what I expected or had hoped for was that that business would be highlighted during that event. But instead, and I want to put this gently, it's a suggestion in the future. When I was there, a food truck was right out in front, blocking her establishment. So patrons to that event were looking at a external to the township food truck instead of a business in our township. So maybe another suggestion would be highlighting our businesses instead of outside food truck vendors. Just two suggestions as I was listening to that. The topic I have for the open public portion of most importance is what I'm about to bring up. If you'll recall with me during the last council meeting, residents that were concerned about the Little Pond rezoning expressed that the planning board had at a minimum insinuated, but more realistically assured that the public portion notes would be delivered to council prior to the vote on the ordinance. Myself and Keith, the next day after that council meeting, did attend the planning board meeting. And Keith brought up this situation, and then I wanted to make sure I correctly understood. The planning board president and planning board as a whole did agree that those notes should have made it to council prior to council vote. And what that would have given you is an insight into the public's response to the planning board, which I think would have been very insightful. And so there was a breakdown there in process that I think should probably be addressed. Third point or third topic, I did send council a email on November 30th with regard to the Turf Time Equipment Company out of New Holland, Pennsylvania, that manufactures what they call heavy-duty turf rollers. And I suggested that it may help resolve our field divot problem in a more cost-effective manner. Did council find the email helpful and the information helpful? Were there any questions with regard to that information?
I didn't have any questions. I had a conversation with Mr. Mr. Cardis regarding that. I understand that when we went out to bid. When we go out to bid, that doesn't mean we're necessarily going to move forward with that particular purchase. We go out to bid. But that roller would also be used for road work as well, not just our fields. And I believe when Mr. Carson and I spoke, and he spoke to Supervisor of Public Works, is that the rollers that you presented would typically just be for fields. Is that correct, Mr. Carson?
Wouldn't be more specific to the roadways, which is our primary objective.
Okay, understood. And do we have, I know last meeting, Mr. Cardis had mentioned that we have in the past and will continue to work on roads. Do we have an inventory of current road rollers? Do we have equipment and inventory of that equipment?
Oh, you're talking about actual equipment.
Yes.
I would have to check on that.
Rollers.
I don't know if we have any rollers. I mean, that's the purpose of getting this roller. So that we will have new fruits. So if we have anything, I would tell you it's outdated, but I can check for you, Paul, and get back to you.
Sure, I could follow up via email too. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, please send me.
Last topic is just with regard to this amendment, I guess, added to the agenda resolution 338 with the Resonate Bliss. Hope I'm saying that right. I guess when I was listening in, I began to become a bit concerned that maybe we're pigeonholing ourselves by only dealing with one entity at this point in time. If my memory serves me correct, which I haven't gone back and looked, but I believe it was only 2 to 3 months ago when we were passing kind of the zoning ordinance on this, and kudos to the team at Resonant Bliss for reacting so quickly. But aren't we also potentially leaving some competitive nature of the marketplace on the table by only dealing with one entity?
I don't know what type of market there is out there, or who's made applications or expressed an interest in this. Mr. Carmer, are you aware? Or
Not aware of
Mr. Cardis?
Well, I'm not terribly interested in creating a market for this stuff.
Well, I mean, it sounds like, well, we did just enter into agreement that they would be able to at least present to the state some type of lease agreement. And the 2% and the 2%, it all sounds good, and I hope that finds its way to the citizens of this township in a proactive way. But I'm sure there are other LLC corporations that would also like to do this and may make a better offer to the township in order to have the land and the lease, etc.
If they approach the town, if other entities approach the town, we will evaluate them.
Should we, I'm just making a suggestion here, but sometimes when you're employed and the market is hot as it is today, you go out and you look for another position and maybe you get a higher salary and you bring that back to your employer and you say, hey, listen, can you match? Is there any thought of maybe going out to the market and looking?
I think what the issue here is the necessity of getting before the state with the municipality telling the state that they are supportive of the applicant and that it meets the zoning. That's another issue. I don't know if Mr. Riley wants to respond to that, but I think that's part of their process to the state to secure their first stage or approval licensing before they go to the municipality. So it reinforces their standing before the state or whatever competition they're standing before, I guess, there. That could be anywhere in the state of New Jersey.
Okay, understood.
Thank you, Mr. Krug. Your
Thank you.
time's up. But before you go, with the permits thing, that is something that for a next event or wherever we have downtown Blackwood, I think that we should notify those businesses and make it work. I got a haircut that day. I go to Legends right there. And I told my Barbara Ron, I said, you better get out of here before 5:30 because you're going to be locked in. And so they ended up just staying to the parade. And, but no, there are businesses that do get landlocked when they shut down the highway, the street there. And then also highlighting the businesses, those that have our existing businesses. Yes, we shouldn't have a food truck that's there. Again, the planning that takes place has to do the Gloucester Township Scholarship Committee. So that's something that I could bring back to them in future years when trucks are placed.
Helpful
All right.
suggestion, and I know a lot, if we were to help out those businesses with the permitting, I know that would be a lot of goodwill and show good faith. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Mr. Bell, you'll be the last speaker of the evening.
Good evening, Dawn Sabella, Choose Landing Road. Question about the passing of the Little Pond ordinance last time. There was an article that came out in the Sun paper where the mayor said that everybody had to approve it because it was actually part of a larger lawsuit with a developer. So I was just wondering who that developer was.
Mr. Carver.
That there was opposition or an objection filed with our fair share plan. We have a fair share hearing coming up in February 9th. The objector was basically someone who had appeared at one point before the planning zoning board for high density, low income apartments, if I remember, and they got rejected. Then they filed another form of application, and I believe that was rejected also. Then they filed as an objector to the township's pending compliance hearing with Fair Share Housing Center and the courts here in Camden County. And they filed as an objector, not an interpleader. So they were prepared to challenge our settlement agreement. They basically were the players for the development. When they saw the zoning come through, they have an understanding and agreement that they'll meet our zoning restrictions and requirements. They'll do a market development. They will pay 1.5% for every residential CO, and the commercial front, they'll pay 2.5% for every commercial CO. And once that passed, they represented to the courts and withdrew their objection. So now we're going before the courts without an objection. It's just a matter of the standing of our fair share plan.
And who was the builder?
I don't recall the builder's name. Not sure if he's from New Jersey.
He was a local one. He's from Florida, I believe.
Florida, right. Okay. I dealt with the attorneys that represented him.
What's the importance of having the fair share housing plan approved?
Well, if our fair share housing plan is not approved, then we're open to builders' remedies for any vacant ground anywhere. They can come in and do whatever they want.
So now that we theoretically have a fair share housing plan, does it afford the township protections?
Correct. That's part of our once our fair share plan, because we were approved 5 years ago. And that 5-year plan brought us through a compliance hearing. So we're at our compliance hearing. Once we get through our compliance hearing, part of that final order is that we're presenting to the court is that we have protections against builders' remedies for zoning.
There was almost 50 people here that evening that spoke up against this change in the ordinance. There was almost an equal amount, although different people, at the planning board the week before.
Well, there weren't 50 people that spoke at our meeting that I recall. There were maybe 6.
At the planning board
At
meeting?
our meeting here. I wasn't at the planning meeting.
At the council meeting where this got brought up, there was upwards
Oh, there
of
were
50
several
people.
here, but
There was
there were
upwards
only
of
6
50 people in seating that were here in opposition. Whether they came up and actually spoke, they were still rather audible. So it was quite evident nobody was really here in favor. And I'm just wondering, obviously all of you knew that this fair share issue was on the table. And the mayor is quoted as saying you had to approve it. Why was this not mentioned to anybody and spoken to any of the people that were here or watching at home to let us know some of the bigger issues. I mean, I don't think it would have settled any of us to be like, oh, okay, great, there's, a lawsuit going on, but I don't understand why nobody mentioned it.
This was mentioned. It has been mentioned. It has taken, people have discussed this for the last 2 years. So but unfortunately, Ms. Bella, people fan the flames of low and moderate income housing and that the value of their home was going to go down and giving people the wrong time to show up at our meeting. But they didn't want that information getting out. But that information was discussed in this council chambers here, that there was a lawsuit, that we had a fair share housing agreement, that yes, there could have been low and moderate income housing there. But no, that didn't fit the narrative of the people that put the signs up and told people to come here at 7 o'clock and continue to go online and tell these tall tales. I hope you don't fall into that, because no, this was discussed. We have people that visit the planning board meeting all the time, and they are aware of this, and it's been discussed here at a council meeting.
I have noticed on a whole, and I'm based on the few people that are now here 2 weeks later for a council meeting, obviously there's not a lot of people in the township that are paying attention on the daily. And I'm wondering why not just in that moment have shared. Some people were newer. Quite frankly, I have not always been following and paying attention to what's going on in the township. I was just wondering why that evening it wasn't mentioned in a more clear manner. I think there was talk about how, suggestions or bids for putting in like 200 plus units was turned down, but I don't recall the discussion about, for better or worse, this has to get approved because of these reasons.
Mr. Bach, who serves as the engineer for the planning board, spoke of this. Mr. Bach was brought here, invited by council to speak on that matter, and he addressed that. Am I wrong, or did I hear something different? But it was discussed.
Right. I guess part of too is that it just seemed, Dan, you're the only one generally when there's a vote going on that actually speaks your mind and says why you're doing it. Maybe that could be a suggestion. It's just that instead of just yay or nays, some forethought could go in, just so that it's more humanized and people understand the logic between, where everybody on council is coming from. You guys are the ones that have this running knowledge. Not everybody that sits out there in the crowd or watches at home always knows exactly what the history is behind things. So I think maybe in general, just giving a little bit more than just a yes or no.
A lot of times, Dawn, we're in a position where we're responding to people up here. A lot of times it's an attack. I imagine if somebody sits here for the first time and sees my response to some people who come up to the microphone, they may say, wow, he's a jerk. But in reality, there's a history behind those comments. And sometimes you're up here and you're focusing so much, okay, that you're not that quick on your feet to grab back at something else. I tried to elicit just a little bit here of why I think it was important what happened. I don't think we had to approve anything on Little Pond. I don't think we had to.
According to the mayor, you did.
Well,
He said it had to be approved
but I think the context
because of the lawsuit.
The context is different. We didn't have to, okay? We chose to, and we chose to prevent something that could come. For instance, if the Fair Share Housing Plan doesn't get approved, could they have built high density over on that property in the future? Maybe not that property, but
We become vulnerable.
we're vulnerable to it. And do we really want that? And do we want that in other areas of the town?
Well, no, that's why there's, you know, a multitude, but I was saying more for when there's just an ordinance and it's, you know, are you in favor or not? Pretty much everybody just says yes or no.
Because Dawn, before tonight's hearing, we had a workshop. We discussed these things, and if we don't like something, we bring it up. And, you know, so I think that a lot of what you're seeing is after it's already been discussed.
Me and the other 60,000 some people of the township. I think it would, like I said, it would be more humanizing to know why our representatives are voting in one side or the other. Why that evening, you know, and other things that come up, does the council vote yes or no, as opposed to just give a one-word answer. I mean, it's like your kid coming home from school and you say, "Did you have a good day?" "Yep," and they just keep walking. You don't know anything about what that day held or anything about it, and you know, it's the same feeling.
So Miss Sabella, I have explained at least on 3 occasions why the events that took place in October were canceled. And I still get the same question presented to me.
You're gonna get repetitive.
So I provide the answer, but the answer is not sufficient enough, or it's because of this reason or a nefarious reason, or we didn't want you to win. I didn't want you up here with me. That's why I cancel it. I made that unilateral decision. No. I had concerns. I talked about Martin Luther King Day of Service. We're not having MLK Day of Service. I'm not comfortable having 800 people at Lewis doing 30 projects. I'm not comfortable with that. I organized that. I'm not comfortable with that. I wasn't comfortable having a trunk or treat with thousands of kids out here. Was not comfortable with that. And I explained it over and over again. I talked about why the food and beer truck festival did not take place. Lack of vendors, volunteers, main stage. But still, it doesn't fit people's narrative. So I get emails asking me these things. So that's the silliness and pettiness that sometimes we have to address here. And so that's why maybe some people and my colleagues on council don't provide an explanation for everything that takes place here.
Okay, not everything, but I mean, you can go back through.
So we want to talk about marijuana. I've never smoked weed in my life. I don't drink. Okay, I have issues with certain things. Okay, but am I going to go and say, oh, you know what, we're going to ban every liquor store here? No. Am I going to say, oh, you know, we have this dispensary that's available here that can provide needed revenue to our township? I have my own personal views on it, morals and values, whatever they may be. I said, but I also see the big picture for our township. So, unfortunately, your time's up and our public portion is ended. Thank you very much for your comments. Polling the directors.
Mr. Garland.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Burgess.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Lechner.
I thought tonight would be my last council meeting.
No, you come back
According
on
to
the
Mr.
29th.
Cardis, he's not going to let me slide. So, being I'm
Could be
here,
it's your life type of thing like 29.
yeah, I wore my good suit. You know, growing up, just give me a few minutes, if you don't mind. I can remember being in college saying when I'm 30, I'm going to retire. Walking across the campus, don't remember who I was speaking with, but I'm only 35 years behind schedule, but trying to keep a low profile. My mom would say, the cat's out of the bag. She always had an expression for something. My dad would say, just speak from the heart. I thank the Lord God, my Lord Jesus Christ, for giving me the opportunity. It's been a great opportunity. I worked for 2 other municipalities and in the private sector. And Gloucester Township is by far the best town I worked for. I thank the mayor for sticking with me all these years, and I thank council, and I wish nothing but the best for council. And I thank the residents for also giving me the opportunity to be your planner. It's been a great ride. I feel like I've been on a surfboard and finally hitting the shore. So, but I'm anxious, I'm nervous, and I'm also happy about it. Same. So got mixed emotions, but I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Don't leave, Mr. Lecter. Okay, anyone want to add to that? Well,
Yes, but not tonight. We're not prepared for that.
I'll just add something.
I don't think I may not wear a tie on the 29th.
You have served for 17 years here?
18 and a half.
years, okay. So, from my first council meeting in 2004, December 20th of 2004, up until now, you have always shown kindness to me, professionalism. I appreciate you always fielding my phone calls. When I sat here on the planning board for 9 long years as the council liaison and sat in that corner there, or you were always fielding any questions or concerns I had. There were many times you've taken many bullets on behalf of mayor and council, and I appreciate that. You have been an authority and a respected member of our township, not just with planning, but within our community, because you show up and, as the kids say, show out. You know, you are always present, and I've appreciated that from you. It's not easy being here on Monday nights and taking some of these shots, but you never back down from any of that, and you were resolute in your answers, and you always gave us a fair shake and the public a fair shake. And so I appreciate everything that you contribute to our township, and I wish you the best. Godspeed to you. Your parents raised a wonderful kid, even though you're much older than me. And one of the things is that one of the beauties of social media, the good things, is that when you see, Ken and I are Facebook friends, but I enjoy seeing some of the things from Ken's childhood and how he's grown up, rural Cumberland County there. Because we see another side of you. And I always appreciate when you used to show up at trunk or treat, dressed in whatever outfit you had, but supporting that event. You just weren't a Monday through Thursday employee. You were a 7-day-a-week employee, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Anyone else?
Just, I'm going to save most for the 29th, but for the people who don't come back, I like you a lot because you're worse than I am at golf, and that's tough.
And I don't use a driver in the sand trap either.
I do. I use the driver in the sand trap.
All right. We'll see you on the 29th.
Thank you.
All right. We'll take you out afterwards. All right.
Chief Harkins?
Council, just want to give you an update. We had through the holiday season shopping, very busy times at the outlets and our other retail establishments, but we had very successful. There was traffic. They were at maximum capacity over at the outlets, but we've worked with management, and we had very minimal incidents of theft and whatnot. We continue to do enhanced operations there to prevent that. Also, traffic. We've been, as you heard the proclamation, I appreciate that being read, and we're going to continue to do enforcement against aggressive driving and DWI patrols, which we see, so that we avoid any tragedies that can happen. We had a great, on Saturday, probably my favorite event that we always do is our Heroes and Helpers, and I want to publicly thank Target on Cross Keys Road for such gracious hosts with us. We've had many benefactors, all the employees here in the township, and many others that contribute for us to take children that are chosen in collaboration with our school district, the elementary schools and the parochial schools. They're given a fantastic morning. They get bussed in with fanfare, and we had over 40 some officers and staff go shopping with the kids, get them things, and it was really a great time. So it was really a proud event. As you can see, we're still collecting toys. We're doing our stuffed truck. We work with the mayor's office. There's a lot of need. So, just to reiterate, if anybody hasn't done that, then please support that. Again, I just want to thank council and the administration for the teamwork and the support that you've given to the police department. And, Ken, I'll save my remarks next week, but Ken's always a pleasure to work with. But I just want to wish everyone a merry and a safe Christmas, and know that we'll be out there doing what we need to do to make it a safe one. So thank you.
Mr. Chadwell?
Come to your report.
Mr. Hutchison?
Briefly, Chief, I read articles throughout the country about the lawlessness, and I'm thankful that our department and your leadership keep us safe. Thanks. Ray, Paul, may sound like a broken record. Pete, you guys have constructive criticism. I appreciate it. You challenge us to do a better job. So thank you very much.
Ms. Grace?
I want to thank everyone for coming out and lively conversation. I usually leave this to Michelle. She talks about vaccinations. I am a school employee, so I see the kids coming in. The nurses working very hard in our school to make sure kids get vaccinated. So I think that's making the difference, like President Orlando had mentioned, and us being able to get out in the community and do a little bit more. I did enjoy, that was my first, I think, no, that's not my second tree lighting ceremony, but this is the first one with such a larger crowd. But I do agree, it feels safer when kids are allowed to get vaccinated at this time. Just, everyone have a great holiday season. If you don't see you at the next meeting, that's it.
Mr. O'Leary?
Thank you all for the wonderful points tonight and topics that you brought here tonight. To add to what Carolyn was saying, at my place of employment, when I left on Friday, there were 2 positive cases. Neither were vaccinated. When I returned to work this morning, there were 15, and the common theme was none of them were vaccinated. Not up here to make a ploy for the vaccination, but take it for what it's worth. Everybody have a wonderful, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and be safe. Thank you.
Mrs. Winters?
I just want to thank everyone for comments and for coming out. Chief, as always, thank you for all that you do. And I guess we'll see you in 2 weeks. And it's not be it for a little while. Just to kind of play off what Councilman Munoz and Councilwoman Gray said, I work in one of the city hospitals in Kansas City. And I can tell you that since COVID started, the hospital has gone 2 days without COVID patients. That's it. 2 days in, we're almost
21 months.
21 months. The numbers are climbing, the hospitals are full. So just be careful, be safe. The surge we're seeing now is from Thanksgiving. So this is going to continue on probably until mid-end January. So just be careful, be smart, be safe, keep your family members safe. And be cautious. Have a great night and have a good holiday, everyone.
Mr. Mercado?
I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening. Again, and for those who contributed to the mayor's toy drive for children in our community. Thanks to Public Works, our police department, and the fire department for the tree lighting ceremony yesterday, and also the Blackwood Fire Christmas Parade. It is good to see our friends and family and residents out at these events. Our December meeting, our second meeting, has been moved to December 29th, Wednesday, 7:30. That has been posted on our website. And our reorganization will be taking place January 3rd at 6 o'clock. That's the first Monday in January, where the mayor, Mr. Hutchinson, Ms. Grace, and Ms. Winters will be sworn in. So I wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, and a happy holiday. Now, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. Have a great evening, everyone.
Yeah. Nice meeting you.
You too.